Inside San Quentin, America's oldest maximum security prison. At first light, before the city wakes up, there is a place where time never moved on. Where the walls remember every scream. Where more executions have taken place than anywhere else in modern America. For over 170 years, men have entered this prison believing they could survive it. Many were wrong. This is San Quentin State Prison. And what happens behind these walls is far more controlled, and far more dangerous, than most people realize. What happens next explains why. The prison that shouldn't exist. San Quentin was never meant to last this long. Built in 1852, it predates electricity, modern plumbing, and nearly every prison reform that followed. And yet, it still operates today, housing some of the most violent and most famous criminals in American history. The prison sits uncomfortably close to one of the wealthiest regions in the country. Luxury homes across the water. Joggers on scenic trails. Ferries passing by. And behind these walls, a completely different world. San Quentin was designed for containment, not rehabilitation. Its original stone structures were built with one idea in mind: isolation through intimidation. Thick walls. Narrow corridors. Minimal light. Even now, walking inside feels like stepping backward in time. The air is heavy. The sound never stops. Metal doors slam with the same echo they did in the 19th century. And for the men inside, that sound becomes the rhythm of life. But the building itself is only the beginning. Because San Quentin is not just old. It is layered, with power, fear, and unspoken rules that decide who survives and who doesn't. And those rules begin the moment a man arrives. Arrival, when the gates close. Every man who enters San Quentin remembers the same moment. The gate. The sound is unmistakable. Steel on steel. A deep mechanical finality. Once it closes, the outside world is no longer real. New arrivals are processed quickly. Names replaced with numbers. Personal clothing taken. Property catalogued. Movements controlled down to the second. There is no shouting. No dramatic welcome. That calm is intentional. Inmates are told very little. Where they're going. Who they'll be housed with. How long they'll wait. And that uncertainty is the first test. Because San Quentin is not one prison. It is several prisons stacked on top of each other, each with its own hierarchy, its own dangers. General population. Maximum security. Administrative segregation. And for decades, one of the most infamous units in American history. Death row. But before any of that becomes relevant, a man must learn how to move. Where to stand. Where not to look. When to speak, and when silence is survival. And those lessons are learned fast. Daily life inside the oldest maximum security prison. The day inside San Quentin begins early. Lights on. Doors opening. Count. Every movement is scheduled. Every delay noticed. Breakfast is not a meal, it's a transaction. You eat what you're given, as fast as you can, surrounded by men watching everything. Sitting in the wrong place. Making eye contact. Speaking out of turn. Small mistakes carry consequences. Cells are cramped. Many were built for one man and now hold two. Some still lack modern ventilation. In summer, heat builds until breathing feels heavy. In winter, cold settles into the concrete and never leaves. Noise is constant. Yelling from distant tiers. Metal doors slamming. Boots echoing through corridors. Radios crackling. Privacy does not exist. And yet, order does. Because inside San Quentin, order is not enforced by guards alone. It is enforced by inmates. Power structures, who really run San Quentin. Race matters. Affiliation matters. Reputation matters more than anything else. In the yard, inmates separate instinctively. Lines are drawn without paint. Crossing them without permission can be interpreted as disrespect, or worse, a challenge. Certain inmates carry authority without wearing a uniform. They settle disputes. Decide who eats where. Who works which job. Who is protected, and who isn't. Violence is not constant. But it is always possible. And because this prison houses lifers, men with nothing left to lose, the threat is real. One wrong move can follow a man for years. And that pressure never turns off. Especially for those housed in the most restrictive areas of the prison. Because what happens behind those doors is even harder to survive. Punishment and isolation. When inmates break rules, or are suspected of doing so, they are removed from the general population. Isolation in San Quentin is not temporary discomfort. It is psychological pressure. Cells are smaller. Time moves slower. Contact with others is minimal. Meals are passed through slots. Recreation is limited to small concrete enclosures, alone. Days blend together. Weeks pass without meaningful human interaction. Some inmates adapt by retreating inward. Others don't adapt at all. And for decades, there was one place inside San Quentin where isolation reached its extreme. A place designed not for punishment, but for waiting. Death row, waiting for the end. For years, San Quentin housed the largest death row in the Western Hemisphere. Men lived here for decades knowing exactly how they were meant to die, but never when. Cells were small. Movement restricted. Conversations shouted through walls. Some inmates arrived in their 20s and grew old behind those bars. Executions took place inside the same prison grounds. Other inmates could feel the tension shift when one was scheduled. Even those not facing execution understood the message. This was the end of the line. And yet, life continued. Men read, exercised, talked, planned appeals, built routines inside a system designed to erase time. Because hope, even fragile hope, is a survival tool. But San Quentin's story does not end with death row. In fact, what happened next reshaped the prison in ways few expected. The prison today, a legacy that refuses to fade. San Quentin still stands. Still operating. Still haunted by its past. Reforms have come and gone. Policies have changed. Executions have stopped. But the building remains. And the men inside still wake up to the same echoes. The same doors. The same routines. Because when a prison is this old, it doesn't forget. And neither do the people who survive it. When order breaks. San Quentin's calm is fragile. It always has been. For most of its history, the prison has existed in a constant state of tension, order held together not by peace, but by restraint. And when that restraint fails, the results are immediate and brutal. Riots inside San Quentin were rarely spontaneous. They were pressure releases. Overcrowding. Long lockdowns. Racial tension. A single act of perceived disrespect. When violence erupted, it moved fast. Guards retreated to fortified positions. Cell blocks were sealed. Entire sections of the prison went dark. Inmates were ordered to the ground, hands visible, silence enforced at gunpoint. And when control was restored, the aftermath lingered. Blood on concrete floors. Burned mattresses. Entire housing units locked down for weeks. But riots weren't the most dangerous moments inside San Quentin. The most dangerous moments were quiet. Famous names, forgotten lives. San Quentin has held some of the most infamous criminals in American history. Murderers whose names made headlines. Men whose crimes defined eras. But fame inside these walls offered no protection. A well-known name could make a man a target. Someone looking to prove themselves. Someone settling a score. Someone seeking leverage. Most inmates inside San Quentin were never famous. They were anonymous lives absorbed by the system. Men whose stories ended quietly, without cameras, without witnesses beyond a cellmate and a guard making rounds. Some adapted by becoming invisible. Others by becoming useful. Very few by becoming powerful. And all of them learned the same truth. Inside San Quentin, survival had nothing to do with innocence or guilt. It had everything to do with awareness. Survival rules no one explains. There are no handbooks for surviving San Quentin. The rules are passed quietly. Observed. Learned the hard way. Never borrow what you can't repay immediately. Never ask questions about someone's charges. Never interrupt a conversation that isn't meant for you. Respect is currency. Disrespect is debt. Even guards understand this system exists. Some tolerate it. Some exploit it. Others pretend it isn't there at all. And for inmates serving decades, or life, these rules become instinct. Because breaking them doesn't always lead to punishment from the institution. Sometimes it leads to something worse. Time as a weapon. In San Quentin, time is not measured in days. It's measured in counts. Meals. Lockdowns. Transfers that may never come. Men lose track of years. Birthdays pass unnoticed. Families age on the other side of the wall. Children grow up and stop visiting. Some inmates stop marking time entirely. They exist only in the present moment, because thinking about the future hurts too much. Others cling to routine. Reading the same books. Exercising the same way. Walking the same number of steps in the yard. Because routine creates the illusion of control. And in a place like San Quentin, illusion can be the difference between coping and collapsing. The weight of the walls. San Quentin's walls were built to last. And they have. They've absorbed violence, despair, hope, and resignation. They've outlived governors, wardens, reforms, and public outrage. And despite decades of debate, the prison still stands. Some call it a historical artifact. Others call it a necessary evil. Many believe it should have been closed long ago. But for the men inside, the debate is irrelevant. Because tomorrow morning, the lights will turn on. The doors will open. And life inside America's oldest maximum security prison will continue. A place that never lets go. San Quentin is more than a prison. It is a mirror of how power is enforced, how punishment is normalized, and how time can be used as a weapon. For some men, it is a chapter. For others, it is the final destination. And long after sentences are served, the prison remains, etched into memory, into silence, into the sound of a steel door closing behind you. Because once you've lived inside San Quentin, it never truly leaves you. Executions, the procedure of death. For decades, San Quentin was not just a prison. It was a place where the state ended lives. Executions were carried out with procedure, not spectacle. Everything followed a schedule. Paperwork completed. Witnesses notified. Doors locked in sequence. On execution days, the atmosphere inside the prison changed hours before anything happened. Guards spoke less. Movement slowed. Inmates sensed it without being told. Even those far from death row knew. The condemned man was woken early. Offered a final meal. Given a chance to speak with clergy or attorneys. Some accepted. Others refused everything. There were no dramatic final moments broadcast to the prison population. No announcement. Just a shift in energy when it was over. And then, silence. For the men still living inside San Quentin, the message was clear. This place did not just confine bodies. It erased futures. And yet, even here, resistance existed. Appeals, hope, and the waiting game. Many men on death row lived for decades in legal limbo. Appeals moved slowly. Some took years to be heard. Others stalled indefinitely. Court rulings changed. Laws shifted. Governors came and went. For some inmates, hope became a daily ritual. Writing motions. Studying case law. Waiting for mail. For others, hope was too dangerous to hold on to. They learned to live in the present. To survive one count at a time. One meal. One day. Because in San Quentin, uncertainty was often worse than certainty. Not knowing when, or if, death would come created a unique psychological strain. One that broke some men quietly, without violence, without warning. And the prison absorbed that damage the same way it always had. Without acknowledgement. Guards, the other side of the bars. The story of San Quentin is often told through inmates. But guards live inside the prison too, just on the other side of the bars. Many arrive young. Some stay for decades. They learn quickly which rules matter and which ones only exist on paper. They see the same men every day. Watch them age. Watch them lose family. Watch them disappear into routine. Some officers maintain emotional distance. Others don't. Some burn out quickly. Others adapt in ways they never expected. The job carries its own risks. Assaults. Trauma. The constant awareness that control can vanish in seconds. And yet, for many, San Quentin becomes familiar. Too familiar. Reform attempts and reality. Over the years, reform efforts have passed through San Quentin like temporary guests. Education programs. Arts initiatives. Counseling. Rehabilitation pilots. Some succeeded briefly. Others collapsed under overcrowding, budget cuts, or institutional resistance. The problem was never a lack of ideas. It was the building itself. Designed in the 19th century, San Quentin resists modernization. Its layout restricts movement. Its infrastructure limits safety upgrades. Its history shapes behavior. Reform inside these walls has always been an uphill struggle. And still, the prison remains open. Modern San Quentin, a prison out of time. Today, San Quentin exists in contradiction. Advanced security systems coexist with crumbling architecture. Modern policies operate inside spaces never meant for them. Executions are no longer carried out, yet death row cells still stand. Overcrowding remains a challenge. Aging inmates require medical care the prison was never designed to provide. And outside the walls, public opinion continues to shift. Some argue the prison should be closed entirely. Others believe its symbolic role matters. Inside, none of that changes daily life. Because the routine continues regardless of politics. Psychological survival, who makes it through? Surviving San Quentin has never been about physical strength alone. It requires emotional restraint. Awareness. The ability to adapt without losing oneself completely. Some men leave changed but functional. Others leave broken in ways that aren't immediately visible. And many never leave at all. The prison doesn't just punish crime. It reshapes identity. And once that process begins, it is difficult to reverse. The prison as a symbol. San Quentin stands as a symbol whether it intends to or not. A symbol of punishment. Of endurance. Of a system slow to change. It forces uncomfortable questions. What does justice look like over a lifetime? How much punishment is enough? And what happens when a prison outlives the era that created it? Those questions have no easy answers. And San Quentin offers none. Final closing, what the walls remember. San Quentin has seen generations pass through its gates. Some entered angry. Some entered afraid. Some entered already broken. The walls absorbed it all. And long after the debates end, long after policies change, the prison remains, watching, waiting, unchanged. Because places like this do not fade quietly. They endure. And in that endurance, they remind us what happens when punishment becomes permanent. When the sentence never ends. Long after courtrooms empty and headlines fade, San Quentin continues its routine. Men wake up. Counts are taken. Doors open and close. For some, this is temporary. For others, it is permanent. What makes San Quentin different is not only its age or its history, but the way time behaves inside it. Days stretch. Years collapse. Decades disappear behind concrete walls built before the modern world existed. A man can enter young and leave old, or not leave at all. And when he does leave, something often stays behind. The cost that doesn't appear on paper. San Quentin measures punishment in years and sentences. But the real cost is harder to record. It's measured in fractured families. In children who grow up without fathers. In men who forget how to make decisions without permission. Some inmates adapt so completely that freedom becomes unfamiliar. Silence feels wrong. Open space feels unsafe. The prison teaches discipline, but it also teaches dependence. And that lesson is one that follows people long after the gates open. A prison that outlived its purpose. San Quentin was built for a different America. An America that believed isolation created order. That punishment alone could correct behavior. That suffering was a solution. Over time, the world changed. The prison didn't. Today, it exists somewhere between history and reality, too old to function properly, too symbolic to abandon easily. It is discussed in courtrooms, debated in politics, argued over in public forums. But inside, those debates feel distant. Because the men still living here experience the prison the same way their predecessors did generations ago. One day at a time. What the walls know. San Quentin has held the guilty and the innocent. The violent and the broken. The notorious and the forgotten. It has witnessed executions carried out in silence. Riots stopped by force. Lives slowly erased by routine. The walls do not judge. They only remember. And if they could speak, they would not tell stories of crime alone, but of endurance, regret, and survival under relentless control. Because San Quentin is not just a prison. It is a record of how far punishment can go when it has nowhere else to end. Across the water, life moves freely. People commute home. Families gather. The city continues. Inside the walls, time moves differently. San Quentin stands as a reminder that punishment does not disappear when society looks away. It remains, operating quietly, shaping lives out of sight. And whether the prison closes tomorrow or stands another 100 years, its legacy is already written. Not in stone, but in people. San Quentin does not ask to be remembered. It simply endures. And in that endurance, it leaves a question behind, not about the men it holds, but about the system that built it and allowed it to last this long.